Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. It's been a little while since my last video. I apologize for that, but we've been quite busy here recently. It's the end of August and the school year is going to be starting soon, and our daughter is preparing to enter kindergarten next week. She's very excited about that, but we've been quite busy getting her ready to go and waiting for the school to send us the schedule and all of that. And my wife was a little ill a few days ago. Luckily she's recovered, and now things are more or less back to normal here. This video is going to be showing you how to unstick the shutter on a Konica Auto S1.6 or Konica Auto S2 rangefinder camera. This video is specifically for Ronald in the UK, who wants to know how to do this. I sold him a camera, one of these cameras, a few weeks ago, and when he went to use it, unfortunately the shutter was stuck. The problem with these cameras is that the shutters are prone to sticking, and it's pretty much the only weakness that they have. This is due to the construction and the coating of the shutters and the tight tolerances used in their manufacture. The coating on these, the bluing used on the steel, tends to attract and hold on to oil, and they tend to stick. And though I do a lot of work to try to clean these up and make sure they work well, sometimes they decide they want to stick again. Most times they don't have any problems, but occasionally they do. Fortunately, the repair is quite easy and doesn't require any specialized tools. The only metal tools you will need is a slotted screwdriver and a pair of long nose pliers. You'll also need a cotton swab, and you'll need some kind of solvent. I'm using lighter fluid, but you can also use paint thinner or alcohol. Anything which can break down oil and which evaporates quickly. Another convenient thing to have, or useful thing to have, is a blow brush like this one, or a can of compressed air like this, which I bought from Amazon. So let's go ahead and get started. The first step we need to do is to remove the retaining ring from the lens faceplate. Normally you would use a lens spanner to remove this, but I found that it's not really necessary in most cases to use a lens spanner. I just apply a little bit of solvent to the filter ring threads. I take my slotted screwdriver, place it in the slot, and give it a push. And 19 times out of 20, that's all you need to do to remove the retaining ring. And it comes out quite easily. Take the ring and set it to the side. Don't drop it on the ground, and definitely don't sit on it. Next thing we have to do is lift out the nameplate on the front, and you can do this by simply flipping the camera over and pulling it out with your thumb and finger like so. And then just set it to the side carefully like that. Once you're to this stage, you have to be careful not to turn the shutter speed or aperture speed rings, because that will move this brass pin here. This brass pin is supposed to engage this slot here, which turns the baffle in front of the light meter. If you move these rings or somehow move this slot, it will make the camera more difficult to reassemble, and you'll have to kind of play around with it to get the pin to engage in the slot. So at this point, just be careful not to touch anything else. The next thing we need to do is remove the front lens element group. Konica, when they made these cameras, they didn't put any slots in the front to which you would use to engage a tool. There are two ways to remove it. You can use a rubber tool like this to pull it out, but the rubber tool can be a little bit risky because it can cause the wires to get pinched or pulled. So usually I don't use it. What I'll do is I'll just use the long nose pliers like so, and don't be too horrified when you see me do this. It works quite well. You just give a light squeeze and a slight twist, and that loosens the front lens element group. You twist it a little bit to the left, and once it's loose, you simply unscrew it by continuing to turn it to the left. You have to turn it quite a few times to get it off. Lift it off and put it in a safe place. And we've exposed the shutter blades. You can see them right there. What we need to do next is we need to apply some solvent to the shutter blades. So I'll apply some lighter fluid to the end of the cotton swab. I'll charge the shutter, and then I will wipe the solvent around, make the shutter blades wet, and simply fire the shutter. And I'll do this a couple of times. You can see it's kind of sticking right now. I'll use compressed air or the blower to blow any of the wetness out, and usually the shutter will work quite fine after that. So the next step is to sit back and wait for a while. A couple hours is good. What I am waiting for is to make sure that the solvent dries all the way and to make sure that no oil seeps back on the shutter blade. So I'll let the camera sit like this for a couple of hours, then I will come back and I will test fire the shutter again. And if it is still working fine, then I will reassemble the camera. If the shutter is sticking again, I will repeat the process, wet the shutter blades, cycle it, blow them off, and wait again. And just keep doing it until they work freely. Once you are done and the shutter seems to be working fine, screw the lens elements back in. And take the long nose pliers, a light squeeze, a slight twist, that's all you have to do. Next thing we want to do is replace the lens name plate. This is actually the most difficult part of the job, believe it or not. You want to drop this on here so that it sits down flat and flush, and that the pin is engaged in the slot in the light meter baffle. It should sit nice and level and have about the same amount of threads showing all the way around. Next thing I'll do is I'll reinstall the retaining ring. I'll apply some more solvent to the threads of the ring. I didn't learn to this trick with the solvent until not so long ago, and I find that it makes the job so much easier no matter what you're working on. A little bit of this makes it much easier to remove these rings. If one is, the filter ring is dented a little bit slightly, it's more difficult to do this. Okay, that's tightened on to pretty much the same location as it was when I took it off. So let's go ahead and test it again. All right, still working. So that's it. So other than the wait for waiting for the solvent to dry and all that, it doesn't really take a lot of time to do this repair. So this camera is ready to go, and I would try it again in a couple of days just to make sure that it's still working and the shutter is unstuck or remains unstuck. If it sticks, just repeat the process again, and eventually it will work properly and reliably. The best way to service the shutter in one of these cameras is to remove it completely, disassemble it, and clean the individual parts and put it back together. But that's quite a long job and makes the camera quite expensive. I sell these cameras for about $120 or $130, and I can't sell them for that much if I'm doing $250 worth of work to them, which is about what it costs to do a full shutter overhaul, which involves removing the top and bottom covers, the leatherette, disengaging the light meter, removing the front plate, removing the lens helicoid, and disassembling all the small parts, taking up the shutter blades and cleaning them individually and all of that. Normally these cameras don't require that kind of work. Normally just a light cleaning, a superficial cleaning is enough to get them working for another couple of decades or so. Other cameras, with a simpler shutter system like the Aries cameras or the earlier Konicas, I always do a full shutter overhaul. But when they made the more modern design with the different helicoid and this glue-on leatherette, they made it much more difficult to do this kind of work. But anyway, that's it for this camera. It's good to go. Ronald, if you have any questions, please send me an email and I'll answer promptly. I'll be posting more videos about vintage Japanese cameras and photography in Japan soon, so please stay tuned. If you're interested in buying a vintage Japanese camera, I sell these in my Etsy and eBay stores and my new online store, japanvintagecamera.com. So please check the description below the video for links to my stores. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you tune in again soon.